welcome to Rotted Reviews, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the movie that just came out today for rent on various streaming platforms, the 2021 Nicolas Cage movie, Prisoners of the Ghostland. So for those of you that watch my channel and are familiar with my tastes, you know that having Nicolas Cage act bonkers in a movie is not necessarily an automatic win for me. It's interesting, it's sometimes whimsical, but it's not always indicative of a good movie. So I was already a little bit apprehensive before this movie came out, but after it was announced, especially the way that it was pitched and marketed as the most bonkers Nicolas Cage movie ever. I mean, that doesn't tell me anything. It certainly doesn't tell me if it's going to be a good movie, and it doesn't really get my interest up the way it seems to with a lot of folks out there. Even so, there were a few little tidbits and nuggets of information that got released periodically a bit later that did pique my interest, and it did get me wanting to watch it on day one of release. So this movie follows Nicolas Cage as an unnamed hero, well, sort of hero, more of an anti-hero. It starts out with him robbing a bank, and then kind of flashes forward to him facing the consequences of that robbery without any real context in between. That does come later, basically showing him imprisoned. He's in shackles and so forth until he finally gets dragged out and put in front of the governor, played by Bill Moseley. And all around them is the setting of Samurai Town, which is kind of an amalgam of Japanese culture wanting to replicate Western cowboy culture kind of thing. And the governor explains to him that his granddaughter has gone missing and she is now on the outlands, the Ghostlands, and he needs somebody, a hero, to go and retrieve her. But Nicolas Cage, being the evil bad guy that he is and not to be trusted, he gets put in a leather suit full of explosives around his neck, his arms, and his balls.
Really?
And the rest of the movie kind of takes off from there with him on rescue mission, trying to get this done within the 3-day time period before every part of him basically explodes. So, was this a very wacky Nicolas Cage movie? Yeah, I mean, there's really no two ways about it. Was this an interesting movie? Honestly, I'm still kind of conflicted on that. I think that there are definitely parts of it that I found very, very beautiful. And it's also kind of easy at face value to say that this is a very original movie with all the weird stuff that's happening in it. However, for me, it really wasn't that original. Just like Samurai Town itself and a lot of the settings within this movie, this seems to be just kind of a general mashup of a whole lot of different things. This movie takes elements and inspiration from just all manner of different sources, from old samurai tales to old Western movies to Escape from New York to Shakespeare and to George Orwell. Anything that you can consider to be the weirdest outliers of the visual aspects of this is kind of chalked up to it being this amalgam of different influences, movies, stories, and so on and so forth, mixed with a lot of Japanese culture and a bit of a flair for bonkersness. But honestly, if you watch a lot of Japanese media, especially comedies like Documento, Gaki no Suke, you know just how bonkers and weird it can get. And Nicolas Cage seems to be like an amalgam of all of his various characters kind of rolled into one. There's a lot of, the nameless hero of like Willy's Wonderland mixed with his evil counterparts and so forth, mixed with his revenge aspects. It's just kind of all thrown into one to kind of create this nameless hero with bombs on his balls. And as far as parts of the movie that really didn't work for me, I think a lot of it came down to that abstract feel translating into character motivations. There were a lot of aspects of what one character was aligned with, was loyal to, and what was fighting against or fighting for that didn't make a whole lot of sense, seemed to shift a bit on a dime, and wasn't really explained all that well. I actually could have done with a little bit more exposition in terms of some character choices. A lot of times it just kind of seemed like people doing things for no real reason, just for the nature of keeping this bonkers roller coaster ride continuing to go up the hill and down the hill. But that kind of covers what I would consider to be like the cons of the movie. As far as the pros, there are many of them. Now, despite being an amalgam of all his other characters, Nicolas Cage did seem to do a fine job with this. Additionally, Bill Moseley seemed to have a lot of fun with his character of the governor, and it's always a treat to watch Bill have fun.
Don't mess my white shoes up.
And lastly, 𝗘𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗀𝗃 as Beatrice, the damsel in distress that Nicolas Cage is going to rescue. It wasn't that big of a character in terms of any kind of range, but I do think that she pulled it off remarkably well. She brought a lot of depth and gravitas to a fairly shallow character. But I think all of that is kind of overshadowed by what I consider to be the best part of this movie, which was the visuals. The color was gorgeous in this film. It has been a long time since I've seen something so vibrant and colorful and visually compelling as all the elements of this movie. It's like the best of the wacky Japanese culture meets the vibrant color of tulip fields in Europe meets the fever dreams of 𝗘𝗾𝗂𝗶𝗽𝗺𝗀. Even if you don't give a lick about the characters, what they're going through, their motivations, the conflicts, anything along those lines, this movie is just a treat to behold, to just watch. Even if you're not that interested in the story, it's just beautiful. So would I recommend it? You know what? I think that I would. I think that especially if you are taken by the marketing, not taken in by the marketing, but taken by it. If it's being advertised as the wackiest Nicolas Cage movie, again, I don't know if I want to, put my hat in the ring for as far as, trying to determine what is or isn't, but that's how it's being marketed. And if that's what you're going in expecting, you're not going to have a bad time. But even if you're like me and the notion of wacky Nicolas Cage isn't an automatic win, I think that there are still some beautiful elements of this film that are worth watching. Not everything is going to make sense, not everything is going to wind up being cohesive, and certainly not every character choice isn't going to leave you scratching your head in wonder. But even so, I did find way more to like about this movie than dislike, and on that basis, I do recommend it. So thank you very much for watching this review of Prisoners of the Ghostland. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click like, subscribe, and click that bell. That helps a lot. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.